Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm Jonathan Levitt from Pandi Press. How is everybody? Good? Can I see everybody? Everybody's good? I'm looking down at the gallery down here. Thanks for being here, everyone. We are so excited for you to join us today. As you know, Pandi Press is Casey Lansdale and myself. Casey is traveling, and so I am here to host this inaugural Pandi Circle. So thank you all for joining me and us on this. We're very excited for this one. And I'm going to do a shameless plug before we get started. Those of you that are on the Pandi Circle, in the Pandi Circle, have received your Pandi packs, and we welcome more people. Please spread the word about Pandi Pack at pandipress.com. We're very excited for this first Pandi Pack to go out. And inside the box, as you know, lots of goodies and coffee and tea and cookies and stickers and signed book plates and all of that, including in this particular Pandi Pack, two great books, actually three stories, two books, Hyenas from Joe R. Lansdale, Hyenas, and Bone Dead Sadness in one beautiful flip book. And of course, the wonderful Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. This is why we are here today to discuss this and talk to Clay McLeod Chapman, who is our guest today. And so we're going to get into that right away. Let's start. Before I bring Clay in, let me tell you a little bit about Clay McLeod Chapman. He writes novels, he writes comic books, children's books, as well as working in film and television. He is the author of the horror novels The Remaking, Whisper Down the Lane, Ghost Eaters, and What Kind of Mother. He also co-wrote Quiet Part Loud, which is a horror podcast produced by Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw for Spotify. And you can find out more about Clay at claymcleodchapman.com. Say that 3 times fast. All right, so let's bring in our very special guest today, Clay McLeod Chapman. There you are. Hey, how are you?
Hey. How's it going, guys?
Good morning. Good afternoon for you now.
I
It's
know,
good to
we
see
made it. We're here, the afternoon, finally.
you. Yeah.
It's getting a little warm out there here in Brooklyn. It's been cold.
Well, yeah, it has been cold. That's exactly that. Yeah, I've heard. Well, we're chilly here in Los Angeles, but we're pretty happy. We're pretty happy.
Uh,
Uh,
just as long as you
hey,
guys are okay out there. I feel like th- the world is literally burning in some places, and I don't know. I appreciate you taking the time and letting me be here and chatting with you. So thank you.
it's really our pleasure. And you know, to that point, we have been hit with quite a bit out here, and we have to just keep moving forward. And that's been something very nice about the community out here in Los Angeles. People coming together, people helping each other, people staying as positive as they can, and it's really been a wonderful thing to see especially in where we are in the world today. So it's nice to see that. Thanks for joining us. And you know what? Before we say too much about the novel, which we'll talk about, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, uh, we also should mention your podcast, Fearmongers.
I mean, you can, sure. It's a total lark. I feel like everybody kind of enables me to kind of just geek out and fanboy. I mean, that's just an excuse for me to like I feel like I'm Chris Farley, just like admiring all of my like heroes. That's all it is.
Isn't that fun? Where can people hear Fearmongers?
We just went wide, so it's like it's on as many of the platforms as I think they can. So Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, YouTube, Audible. Like it's
Great.
spreading its tentacles out there. So yeah,
It's nice to see an artist being able to spread their wings and do so much as you are doing.
yeah,
Speaking of doing so much, you know, Casey had the great fortune of seeing you live
yeah,
with an audience at
yeah,
Storyfest in Connecticut.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was a trip. I honestly like again like it's just I'm a fan first, so doing events like at Storyfest, which was, I mean, I like Storyfest was basically like, hey, do you want to do a live version of Fearmongers for us? And I was like, yeah. And then I got to kind of like cherry pick some of the guests that they had. So, I mean, you get to like talk to Joe Lansdale, you get to talk to like Ellen Datlow, you get to talk to Stephen Graham Jones, and it's just like Rachel Harrison. Like how, I mean, how amazing is that? Yeah,
It,
I'll
it's
do
a,
it any day, any day.
you know what? It is a really great community, and I will say completely with complete transparency that this is a world that I have been thrust into as a result of Casey, and it's been a joy for me to get to meet many of those people that you're talking about, get to meet authors like yourself. It's
Yeah.
been really a joy, and so it is a wonderful community of authors, and everybody that wants to. It's small. It's a small community and a family type of community. So it's
Yeah.
really been nice to see that.
Welcome.
She
You're one
said,
of us now. One of us. One of us. Gooble gobble.
that's,
Google gobble.
oh no, no, no. I'm happy to be part of it. She mentioned to me that you're an incredibly dynamic performer. So before we get into what here's the format for today. Uh, for the Pandy Circles, we want this to be a community. We want to bring people together that have the Pandy Pack, talk about the books, talk about anything they really want to talk about, and invite authors in to have this opportunity to really to meet you and grow that family. And so what we would like to do is have you give us a little reading today, if you don't mind, from the book. We would love to hear you do that. And then I've got some questions for you. We want to open it up to questions from anybody that's here in attendance, and we'll go from there and make this a very informal but uh, uh, inclusive circle here. So if that's okay with you, we'd love to hear you read. Do you mind doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if you're still talking to me afterwards. Um, I'm going to read from Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. This came out almost like 2 months ago now. So I've been in the thick of touring for it. So I'm gonna read. There's no way to spoil this book. Like it's spoil proof. Um, but just imagine half of the world is possessed by demons. Half of the country is possessed by demons, and which half totally depends on where you get your news from. And I'm gonna read from the third section, part three. Um, the apocalypse. I think we're like 5 minutes into the apocalypse, and yeah, the it's not like a main character, but the kind of protagonist is this guy named Noah, who has gone down south to visit his parents because they've stopped talking to him, and he wants to make sure that they're okay. And it turns out they're not okay. They are now possessed by demons. So here we go.
Thank you.
Oh, you say that now. I don't know. Good afternoon. Anderson Cooper here, reporting to you live. Startling news today as multiple reports of random violence erupting across the country continue to pour in. We have some unnerving footage that we would like to share with you. For those of you watching at home, we want to warn you of its disturbing nature. If there are children at home, please, parental discretion is advised. What you are watching seems to be happening everywhere, all across the country. These riots have no reason. If they are in fact protests, we have yet to be told what they are for. There is simply too much conflicting information coming in for us to say with any certainty what the cause of these heinous acts may be. We simply do not know. We are still waiting to hear from our nation's leaders on what is happening. For those of you watching at home, we want to advise you to stay inside, lock your doors, and shelter in place. Do not, we repeat, do not engage with anyone else. This includes your neighbors, perhaps even members of your own family. I simply do not know what else to say. Stay safe, America. How was that? Did I do good? Whoo! Oh, suffice to say, Noah Fairchild, the great reawakening is finally here, and you are nowhere near prepared to deal with it. You soft-skinned, sniveling little snowflake. You are simply not equipped for this. Any of this. I mean, it was only when you finally turned on the TV and realized that this was happening all across the country, everywhere, that your mind finally decided to shatter. I mean, it's pretty commendable that you held on to your sanity for that long. Kudos to you, kiddo. Really. Your brain just needs a break. Okay? Let's hand the remote control over to the professionals. Who amongst us can pilot us through the apocalypse? Anderson motherfucking Cooper. That's who. Yeah. In the midst of every horror happening, your mind adopts a cloyingly liberal coping mechanism. You now have my calm, cool voice guiding you through the carnage. I am sitting in the news desk in your mind, broadcasting from your brain, reporting on this late breaking chaos as it unspools before you. My nuanced tone allows you to take in the madness, process it, because that's what old Coop does. Am I right? In the midst of the shit hitting the fan, I am there. Ooh, keeping it cool, keeping it calm, keeping it together as I report on this ever living shit. I lost my place. I am your trusted news source in the midst of the world going to shit. I'm honored, frankly, that your fragmented mind would pick me. Thank you, Noah. Really. No, it's just you and me, pal, okay? We're gonna get through this together. Simply sit back and try to survive because, let's be a little honest with ourselves here. You are so fucked right now. How are we going to skedaddle back up to Brooklyn, huh? How are we going to get to our wife and kids? How are we going to return to our little liberal enclave of Park Slope, where we can regale our fellow brethren of turtleneck sweater wearers and tell them about the awful conditions of the red states? Oh, I was lucky enough to get out of there alive. I mean, I did my damnedest to deprogram my parents, but by the time I arrived, it was already too late. They were already monsters, possessed by their programming. How, Noah? How? Just try, okay? Try and survive. You got this. I know that you can cross the Mason-Dixon alive and in one piece. Should we try? Okay, just take a few deep breaths with me, okay? All right, on your marks, get set, go! You stumble out of the front door of your childhood home for the first time since you arrived, gasping for air. You instantly wince as the late afternoon sun strikes your eyes. Your knee-jerk response is to wail. Just let it all out. All that pent-up panic, the downright dread of it all comes unspooling out from you, chest relenting, unraveling in some long, drawn-out howl. Others answer back. The neighborhood is alive with screams. What the fuck? You have entered into a world you no longer recognize. The world you knew before, yeah, the one held together by like a social contract and laws, yeah, yeah, the one held together with a paper thin skin of morality, of humanity. Yeah, that world's gone now. It's not, it's theirs now. All theirs. Who are they? I guess you'll just have to read and find out. Thank you.
Wow. You wrote this in, you started writing this in what, 22, you
20,
said?
22, 2022. Yeah. End of the year, 2022.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so much, I mean, obviously so much in the zeitgeist for where we are today. And but this book is genre. That's what's interesting about this is that you've tapped into the zeitgeist, but you've put it in genre, right?
Mhm.
And there we were reading through some of the reviews. The reviews on Goodreads, the good reviews are eh,
Yeah.
this book was horrifying,
Yeah.
5 stars. A possession story unlike any other you've read, five
Yeah.
stars. Violent and frankly disgusting, 5 stars.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Or the adverse. This book is disgusting. 1 star. This book is horrifying. 1 star. This book is like, I mean, I thank you for accentuating the positive. For me, like it's always like the the you see this balance of like I hated it, I loved it, I think this is awful, I think this is fun. And like uh I mean, I don't know. There's no greater larger point here other than this is a very polarizing book. People either go for it or they don't. Uh
Sure.
and that's it is what it is.
And I think I think the responsibility of an author is to write write what's inside of you, right? And not write to the whole, but write what you want to write, and
What's inside
you've
me?
done that.
What is that? Like what have I done? Like this is like, oh my God, who am I? You're never going to want to talk to me again after this.
Oh, no, quite the opposite. Let me ask you this. So, based on the reviews, so you're talking. There are people. Like you say, it is polarizing, or can be polarizing, but it is a fascinating piece of work, and it's very intense. What would you say to someone who's never read your work? What book would you have them start with?
I probably would not start let suggest this is the first. Or maybe I would. I don't know. Like that's a tough call because at the what's funny is that it is it is certainly the most vulgar, certainly the most kind of like profane thing that I've ever written. But I would argue that's what this book needed to be.
Hmm.
If in terms of the kind of like the utopic version of like, this was the most enjoyable experience of putting a book out into the world, from writing it to receiving it. Um, I would argue Ghost Eaters, which was a book that came out in 2022. Um, that to me is the one that has been the most embraced, I think. Like I think that's as close to a radio hit as I've got, for better or for worse.
I think that's so that came out in 22, and you
Yeah.
started writing this one in 22. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, like I've been very
I've been
fortunate
very
where like
fortunate where like
work
work.
has had this ability to like put me on almost like a book a year, like every like 18 months. And but it's like when one book is kind of put to bed and kind of on the way to the shelves, I have to be working on the next one, or getting that one ready for edits. So like my mind right now is already like a book or two ahead, which is that's the dream. Like that's all I've ever wanted to do. But yeah, it makes for a very kind of fractured way of thinking of like, okay, who was I when I was writing this book? Like, where was I? Yeah, very different
yeah,
places.
but what a dream. Yeah, to be able to
Yeah.
be on that consistent cycle and be able to change gears. And so for right now, are you working on something else where I'm assuming you've taken a different direction in your next work. I'm guessing.
I mean, it's
Can you talk about it?
insane. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a bit of a like literary logjam, which is the best problem to have. Like 2025, I have this came out in January. Like, originally, this book was supposed to come out in of like October of last year, 2024, which would have been a whole different experience for this book. Um, but I have a collection of short stories coming out in September from Titan, and then a YA novel coming out in November of this year. So it's a very kind of like a
Wow.
cornucopia of publishing. But then right now I'm writing a romance novel. I somehow convinced Harlequin to let me write a love story for them. And this is the thing that I needed to write after writing Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, because like for me, I mean like Wake Up was such a turgid, it's not a very pleasurable book all around. Like, the cathartic for sure, but like n- uh, you know, there's no happy ending to it. And I need like and they all live happily ever after. So I just want to write a love story. So Harlequin's letting me do it for them. And that's
That, that that's amazing.
yeah.
Talk about a changing in gears there for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I love love stories. Love stories are the best. I I feel like I've tried to sneak in love stories to a lot of other things that I've written. Uh, but this is like the first time where it's like, no, this is this is gonna live, I think, in the romance section, which is like a very different lane.
Wow.
And yeah, it's so funny because it's like all about it's a demonic possession. I'm saying this now, and we're talking about Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, but the next book is also a demonic possession story. But imagine a love story between a, a fella and someone who is possessed by a demon, and he falls in love with a demon. Um, that's where we're going, for better or for worse. That's where my heart lies.
I
Demons.
look forward to reading that. That's fantastic. That's great. Well, it's fun that you get to. I mean, it's fantastic. I can't wait to read that. That's cool. You know, you write for film and TV too, right? And so, how
Yeah.
does that come into play when you're in your storytelling? Does that change the way you approach storytelling?
I mean, it for me, I kind of want to acknowledge that like the best things that I put out there, regardless of the medium, is always when I lean into the collaboration. And that's either with a director or an editor. Because I always feel like I'm if I go to my default, like I'm just gonna rely on my shtick. But editors, directors, illustrators, whether it's comics, film, podcasts, books, like other people kind of pull you out of your comfort zone. And with film, it's ultimately a director's medium, but like you're there to kind of like tell, like be the architect of that story. And I don't know, like I what I love about filmmaking and in kind of an extension comic book writing is that like the work that I do is never the end result. And even with the filmmaker, what the filmmaker does, it's not the end result, but it's like some odd kind of transcendent. It's like it's like something better than any one particular contribution, but it's like that weird kind of elemental alchemy of like everybody adding to this mix and making something that is better than any one of us. Um,
It,
I feel like that goes
it's
to filmmaking. I'm sorry, goes with novel writing as well. Um,
it's
when you have a great
interesting to hear
editor.
you say that. There are I know there are certain authors who would not be as comfortable with that experience, right? Kind of letting go a little bit of um, their
Yeah.
own work in a way, right?
I mean, I think it. I mean, if I was a better writer, I would be like, I got this, guys. I'm fine. Like I think, like for me, I'm I come to every project or every story thinking like it's not about me. Like I'm here to service the story, and I just want the story to be the best story it can be. Because I'm gonna die. I'm gonna be gone. I'll crumble to dust at some point. But like the story has a fighting chance of being around after. And
Yeah.
like so like for me it's like trying to like strip away hubris and ego and vanity and like let it just be about the story and like I don't know. So I need help. And like I come to the editors and I'm like, I mean, God bless the beta readers, like cuz like what I'm giving them is like, ugh, like what the heck is this? And I f- I find it with the help of others. Um because otherwise it's just going to be me in an echo chamber in my office by myself. I'm not the master of story. Like I'm just I want I want to serve the story.
It's really comforting to hear, actually, you see this as a collaborative art. You bring your story to the table, and then you allow others to help lift it up. It's actually
Yeah.
great. Uh, let's go back to Wake Up and Open Your Eyes for a second. So you are clearly targeting the right, but you're also targeting the left. To be fair, right?
I'm
Uh,
targeting everybody. Like
yeah,
I mean like you know I'm jumping, forgive me. But I do think that like the lowest hanging fruit in a book like this is 24-hour news networks or like it's like that's the easiest target. Um, if you read the book and you go through the book, I think what happens at a certain point is you realize, oh, that may be the aperture into the story, but there's something a little bit more the further along you go. It's not just right or left. It's like, we're all in this together. We're
That's
all
right. That's
burning
right.
together.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. And we have to acknowledge each other and not just fight each other. Otherwise, we just put up our guards and become defensive and not move forward. Right.
Yeah. Well, the tough thing there is that this book is this book has zero answers. It has zero like culprits. It has zero like for me, I'm always fascinated with like the first like 5 minutes of the apocalypse. I'm less interested in 5 months after the apocalypse. Like I think a lot of literature and film like is like we need to rebuild society. We need to come together and like find out how we're going to survive. And those stories are great. Like I imbibe those stories religiously. But like for me and particularly with this book, it was more interesting to watch all the systems collapse. Nobody has any answers. Nobody knows what the heck is going on and everybody has an opinion on it. So it's like I wrote what Twitter feels like for 400 pages, where it's like, oh, you want to know where COVID came from? It came from here, and oh, that's wrong. It actually is from over. Like to me, it's like this is the apocalypse where nobody knows exactly what's going on, but everybody sure does have an opinion about it, and they're gonna tell you. And you, the reader, are kind of left to be like, what the heck is going on here?
I think it's important to note for anybody that hasn't read the book or is coming into this, hearing this, uh, this isn't just a look at what's going on in our world today, it's still a horror book. Still has that story. I don't, 'cause it sounds like we're talking about Twitter and what have you, but it really is a fascinating story from the genre perspective as well.
Yeah.
If you're into
I
that,
mean,
it's
yeah. I bow down at the altar of Sam Raimi and particularly Evil Dead 2. And I thought it would be an interesting idea of what is what is Evil Dead 2 writ large on a like national scale. Like cuz like
mm,
and I think like a lot of the remakes and sequels are kind of like edging into this is no longer an isolated problem, but it will, you can feel it kind of starting to like expand into larger territories, specifically with Evil Dead Rise, which I love. Um, but I wanted to like leap to, oh, this is a national problem. It's not Ash in a cabin in the woods anymore. It is everywhere with everyone all at once. And just the utter chaos of that just seemed like very appealing to me. Um,
mhm.
and then in execution and then in kind of like presentation, all of a sudden it's like, that's really gross. that's really that's really vulgar. Um, so I you know I get what I pay for. Buyer
Noah
beware.
Fairchild, buyer beware. Noah Fairchild, who's the protagonist, is seems to have a similar background as you. Is there a bit of you, a reflection of yourself in Noah?
Oh, oh yeah, that's just me. Like I'm just chastising myself as a kind of ineffectual, left-leaning Brooklyn dad who has no survival skills whatsoever. Like if the apocalypse were to happen today, you would not want to be with me. Like I would be gone in the first 5 minutes of that. Like I'm just not equipped for it. And I have this is what I'm contributing to the world, to society at large. And there's just this moment of like, in writing this book, I was, again, like it's just too easy to chastise and point fingers and wag and like, but that's kind of like what everybody's doing right now. So was very honest with myself. I tried to be honest with myself, and I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, then I have to pivot. I have to turn the camera on myself and put myself on the underneath the magnifying glass or the microscope. And so like the last 200 pages is just like how much of a dumb shit I am.
Was it cathartic for you to read that?
I mean, to a certain extent, like it is just kind of like little lashing. Uh, I it was fun in its own way. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like, just nobody should be safe in a book like this. And so yeah, for those who are like, oh, it's not, I feel like it's too easy to kind of paint it in the portrait of like a us versus them, you know.
Hmm.
But like that's what everybody wants the book to be, and that's what the book posits it is
Right,
until it's not, and then it becomes
right,
something else.
right. Which is why I go back to, the point about what this is. It's much more than that.
Yeah.
Do you have a from all of your own writing? Do you have a favorite character that you want to tell us about, or and why you have a favorite character
Oh.
from your own writing?
Um, I'll stick with Wake Up, just because we're talking about it. But
Mhm.
in that book, there is a mother. The middle section, phase two. It's like a family of four, and we're watching them kind of succumb very incrementally to their own demonic possession. And the mother in that is this woman by the name of Devon. And I really just kind of, I don't know if I identified with her, but I sympathize. Like I just like watching her kind of like go down this downward spiral was really, I was like, oh, like I really love Devon. She was my fave in that book.
What
Noah
did she?
could
Did she?
bite it. Like Noah, like he's gone. Bye, Noah. But
Oh,
Devon.
wow. Did Devin come from someplace in your own life?
Yeah. Um, I I mean, I'm pretty open about this at this point, but like the whole point to the book came about because I have bared witness to the kind of shift in ideologies of certain family members in my personal life. And gradually over the, course of like a decade, like people who I love, have transitioned from kind of one way of thinking to another. And it's so stark in kind of contrast that like the person I grew up with versus the person I'm sitting across the table from at, Thanksgiving dinner. It's just very, very stark. And that was really kind of scary to me. And my kind of thought, like in reading about it and kind of like learning about like other people who are kind of going through similar situations, there was this common refrain that just kept bubbling up in like articles and reports and stories of like, I don't recognize my mother anymore, my uncle anymore, my grandfather anymore. It's like they were possessed. And I heard that enough times that for me, I just asked the kind of silly question of like, has anyone written that? Like, has anyone actually like done that? And I figured I would. And yeah, so dibs.
Yep. And you did. And
Oh,
you
I
did.
did.
Yeah,
That
you did. You did. You did. And it's an interesting approach to it all. Yeah, that it is. They become possessed. You write horror stories, so the fear is something that is in all of us. Uh, Tell us about your relationship with fear and how that's changed over the years, especially as you look at you as a writer of horror.
Mhm. um I'm a big scaredy cat. And I mean I carry a lot of fear with me, and that's something that's been there since I was a child. Um and horror always kind of served as a outlet for those fears, a kind of safe catharsis for them. Which is, it's interesting as like a fan and a reader and an audience member, like I gravitate towards these kind of this genre because for all the things we usually talk about, like it makes me feel alive. I I get to kind of like play out these kind of fears in a way that feels safe and cathartic. And then to be someone who writes about these things and kind of like tries to kind of like explore these avenues. Um, at first it was just kind of like these were the stories that I was interested in, and now I want to tell them. But as I've gotten older, and frankly, becoming a parent, all of a sudden I recognized in myself as an artist that like the more I'm writing about my own personal fears, the things that scare me, um, the more enriched the stories themselves become. So, and I say this all the damn time now, but like I have to have skin in the game. Like I have to be working from a place of like what scares me. Um, so to a certain extent, like with a lot of the more recent novels, the beginning is, well, what am I afraid of right now? Like what is terrifying me? And it just roots the horror in a more honest,
Hmm.
emotional place because
Hmm.
if I'm writing about things that scare me, then by extension, maybe it scares you and we have something in common. And that's what kind of bridges the gap between writer and reader. And it's just
Hmm.
more succinct, more
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you afraid of today?
Oh, so much. Um, I mean, like, my kids hate me for it at this point because, like, I'm casting them in, like, my own private personal horror movies every day where it's like, I mean, I kiss them goodbye and they go to school every morning. And it's hard not to be like, to have just like a little blip, like a little millisecond moment of just like, please, world, let them be safe. Let them be okay today. And,
Right.
you know, I mean, like, it's just such a different world. And, you know, as a kid, as someone who grew up where like the day started and it was like, we the kids from the neighborhood got on their bikes and like skinned their knees and broke their arms and like watch out for the van with no windows. But like it was just like the Spielbergian kind of like journey of like the suburbs of like you're in the world and the world is gonna like do what it will. But now it's like, oh my god, like I it just feels different. Like I don't like where are you? Are you okay? Can you text me? Let me know if you made it to the place
Hmm.
okay? Um,
Right.
you know, it's just but maybe that's me being a scaredy cat, but I don't know. I don't know. It just feels different.
No, I think I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And perhaps the more connected we are, the harder it is to let go and say, just let life take it, you'll be fine today, right?
Yeah.
Because we're more connected in a way.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe that's it. Uh, hmm. Let me ask you this. With all, because you've written such a diverse range of content. Uh, would you say there's been a turning point or a break? I mean, this book is getting a lot of attention. Would you say that there was a turning point in your career, that a breakthrough, if you will?
It's tough because I feel like I've had three, if not four or five different kind of like career life cycles where it's like having a break, collapsing, and then like going to writer's jail for years, and then like having a break, collapsing, going to writer's jail for years. But like, I mean, for me, it's not even so much a break as it is like somehow I was able to convince someone that I was worth their time. And the I think the biggest kind of like break was honestly convincing Quirk Books, the people who published like the last 5 novels of mine, they they took me in at a point where like I couldn't get published to save my life. Like I just like it was just I had written like 5 or 6 books to that point, and like just abysmal sales, like working for Disney, working for Big Five, and like like and you have the moment, you get on the bookshelf, and then the like nobody buys them, and then you kind of just fade away. And Quirk wanted me to like they were like, "Do you want to write a horror novel for us?" Um, and I was like, "Yes, I absolutely want to write a horror novel for you." Because up to that point, like I entered into the fray where like Barnes and Noble didn't have a horror section. It was all fiction. So for Quirk to say, we want like the things I had written up to that point were that weird like blending of like genre, but it was still categorized as fiction.
Hmm.
Quirk was the first place where I was like, we want you to write horror. And so the 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 kind of tactic changed where it's like, I have to write a scary book, but I want to imbue it with everything that like I feel like is what I bring to the table. Um, so the break was honestly the support and like belief that like Quirk believed in me and were willing to kind of take a chance when it was really hard not to.
Yeah.
And like the first book I did with them, it did okay, I guess. Like, but like they've allowed me to keep coming back and like gradually over the course of like the last 4 or 5 years, uh that support has it's not overnight, but it's just been consistently like
Mhm.
groundswelly, like it's radiating out. And I just view every book as just another opportunity to convince another reader to just take a chance. Um,
Mhm.
there are plenty of readers who, they'll read one and they'll be like, nope, not for me. And that's okay, because for me, it's just like, it's just finding my readers, like who wants to read me. And
That's right.
that is, it's not for everybody, but it's like, it doesn't have to be.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You write what you want to write, and there are enough readers out there that you will have your audience.
Yeah.
And it is nice to hear that you have that relationship with your publisher. As Pandi Press, we're trying to create those relationships as well to help, just promote good books and authors.
Yeah.
And uh, and and it's a different world. It seems like the publishing industry is very different today. And so if we can
Mm.
create that relationship and give a platform to authors that deserve a platform, that's a wonderful thing. And to build that
Yeah.
relationship is a nice thing. So I'm happy to hear that you have that with Quirk. Uh, if let me Clay, if you could collaborate with anybody in the any writer or artist in the horror genre, who would it be and why?
um, I mean, just because Sam Raimi is on the mind, you know, I wouldn't turn down an opportunity for him to adapt Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. It's never gonna happen. But like, if we're shooting for the
Wow.
moon, like that would be lovely. Um,
Yeah.
but maybe that's the kind of the where my heart goes.
Have you met Sam Raimi?
Y- I've I've met with Ghost House and pitched to them
Mhm.
so many times.
You have, okay.
So it's like the outer circle. I've never gone into the inner circle, but I've never met Sam, but met his people. Does that count?
Okay, well, it does count. It is a step. I wish you well in that endeavor. That would be really fun to see a collaboration there. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Um, hey, Claire has a question. Claire, are you there? There, Claire.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi.
Hi, Claire.
So first I just want to say I really enjoyed your book and congrats on the release.
Thank
Um,
you.
I'm newer to this genre, so I found a lot of the content to be shocking. It took
Yeah.
me back, but really effective in what you wanted to say. So, do you have any like specific writing techniques or writing devices that you use to like create reactions in your reader, like the horror, the fear, the shock, anything like that?
Um, well, first off, thank you for still talking to me because I do feel like it is tang without the water. Like it's really, I mean, like this book in particular was pretty like I felt like it was necessary, and other people kind of disagree, but I just feel like it for this book to kind of go to the place where I wanted it to go, it needed to have a certain kind of vulgarity to it. Um, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that, like, I mean, The Exorcist is 50 years old. And I think of, like, what happened in The Exorcist and how kind of traumatizing those, like, watching that 50 years ago, like just 5 decades ago, and, like, where are we now? That's a digression. But, like, in terms of techniques, I don't know if I did this well enough or did it enough in this specific book, but I do think that the 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 techniques that tend to work best is when you kind of seduce the reader into feeling like they're in a place of safety. Like, and usually that is through kind of like an emotional connection, you know, write characters that feel real and honest so that readers connect to them. And then you put those characters in peril or in danger. And you, as the reader, are suddenly, because you're invested in them, you. You want to see them kind of make it through. Um, so I feel like for me, the best technique is always the like lay down the groundwork of emotional honesty and you know like get to know these people and lure your reader through that into a sense of maybe it's false security, but it's also just a sense of like identity. Like I identify with these people because I understand them, I know them. And it's not like serving character is also in the service of your story because that's how readers connect. With Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, I kind of threw all that out the window. Like it was like it's a little like let's just hit the ground running because there's just not enough time and like blah 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 blah. So uh, I also want to acknowledge that I am not utilizing the rule or the technique that I'm suggesting, but I do believe like there's this amazing book called The Reformatory by Tana Nariv Dew, which I would wholeheartedly recommend. I think it's like 400, maybe 500 pages. It's a thick book, but like the first half of it is you're just meeting people and learning and like connecting to these characters, so that when they are put in harm's way, you genuinely feel like, oh my God, I want this person to survive. Um, and that's beautiful. I don't know. Other people do it much better. Tana Reed does it amazingly.
Thank you. That was a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks. That was a great answer. Cindy had a question. Oh, Bob Baker.
Oh, Bob has a question. You know how to
Hey,
raise his
Bob.
hand.
Hello, Michael, everybody. Clay, thanks so much for doing this with us. This is a fascinating look into what an author does and how they think. I'm curious, with your output, are you writing several things simultaneously or do you write serially? First the novel, then the screenplay, whatever it is, or do you have multiple projects going on simultaneously?
Um, Now it's a little bit of simultaneous. There's a lot of plates in the air, um, and I don't recommend that. But I mean, like, I am in a really kind of lovely opportunity. The problem I'm having is that I say yes to any opportunity that comes my way, because I don't know if I'll ever get that opportunity ever again.
Sure.
And I just want to take advantage of any any opportunity that is presented to me. Um, because I don't know, it allows for exploration and experimentation, and that's really exciting. Um, in that, I have to write a draft first. Like it's like I have to like focus on this thing and write this thing, whether it's a short story or a script or like it just one draft. And then I volley it out to the editor, the producer, like and and what's great is that everybody else takes a lot more time than I do. So when they're reading it, when they're getting their feedback together, when they're getting their notes together, I pivot to this thing. And it's like I am just working on this thing. And you know, it the analogy is kind of like I'm playing ping pong with three people. So it's like I volley that ball. I'm going to volley your ball. I'm going to volley that ball. But each ball, each ball has to take a lot longer to get back to me so that I can volley the next one.
Hmm.
And most times I can do it. Sometimes that the feedback comes faster, and then that's when the anxiety really seeps in because I'll be like um, because then I have two things, and that's not something that is ideal. But this is a lovely problem to have. And
Better than sitting around wondering who's going to pick up this work and run with it.
yeah, yeah. Um, but I do think that like it's I don't want to rush anything, and I don't want to like because like time is like these things need time. They need like and but I also find I'm a needy writer. I need feedback. I need someone to respond to it. So like for me, a common kind of refrain from editors and other people is like, oh, wow, that was fast. And it's not so much that it's like, I'm not like speeding through it. It's just like, here it is. What do you think? And like, I
Hmm.
need to have that kind of conversation with someone external to me so that they can say, I think it's this, or I don't think it's that. And it's like in that conversation, like it refines my understanding of what the material is so that I can get it to that next draft. And so I need two drafts for every other better writer's one draft. Like have to imagine Stephen Graham Jones one draft. I need two and a half. Like it's like if I can get two in the course of like another author's one, that's great because it's me being like, this is rough, this is raw. Um, what is it? And then we'll have a discussion about it, a conversation about it, and then it'll be like, okay, now I have a slightly better understanding of it. So now I'm going to go in and noodle with it. And now it's closer, right? And it's like always in the like the progress, like the intent is to move forward and discover.
This is
I
really
appreciate your
effective.
collaborative. Bob, thank you very much. Great question. It's so interesting to me. Your collaborative nature is very uh, uh, interesting for me. And before we get to this next question, can I ask you, wake up and so it sounds like you've got this process and you feel like it's a back and forth volley. Wake up and open your eyes. I have the sense that it went, I don't know, I'm guessing here, went quicker for you. I don't know if that's right or not, but it feels like maybe you got there faster. I don't know. Is that right or wrong? I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
Mm. It, there was more of it. Like it's funny. Like I wrote it for. I mean, like there was definitely like the draft, and it was just massive and sprawling. I think like there was like a 500-page version of this, and then through circumstances outside of my own, there was like a 9-month window where I didn't work on the book, and like a chunk of 2023 was just spent in kind of a stasis uh,
Huh.
between edits, and that allowed me a chance to kind of step away. And when it was time to kind of re-engage with the material, um, I had a more like the distance gave me a chance to be like, okay, let's this is I can go in now and really kind of like change like sculpt this better. Um, So yeah, there was like a kind of down and dirty, fast and furious, raw kind of like the vomit draft. And then there was a revision, and then there was an opening of like just we're gonna put this one down, and then I came back to it and I was like, oh wow, let's really, you know, let's just dig in, cut.
Sure, it must have given you new energy to come back to it after that time. Was that just the circumstances that period of time that was down, or was that a choice?
It was not a choice. It was just my editor had other things, and like it's interesting because like to a certain extent, you know, it's like get it in, and then you wait, and the waiting game starts, and sometimes the waiting game is like a month, 3 months, 5 months. This one was 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah.
Do you
So I
think that
wrote a
if you
YA
did not
book in
have
that time.
if you didn't have that 9 months, would you have would this book be very different?
I To an extent, yeah. I mean, like it's funny because like when I wrote for me when I first pitched this book, all I wanted was that second section, the middle part. Like I just wanted to be with this family of four. Uh my editors were like this needs to have a more global view, like it needs to be kind of more out in the world. Like they were basically like this is really suffocating, like open a window, let in some air. Um so that's when the first and the third section kind of came into it, which kind of serves as like an on ramp and an off ramp to that middle section. And that's all discovery. That's all like this, um, pitching it, throwing it against the wall, seeing what sticks.
Right, right. It's
Little
such a
lies
process. I
together.
mean, not everybody knows what that, they don't, they just read the end result. The process is what's fascinating. We have a question from, is it Anas?
Uh, yeah, close enough. I mean, it's an Arabic name, so I never expect people to like pronounce it the way I would in Arabic, you know. So at least you didn't
Tell us though,
Anas.
Anas, thank you. Thank you. You have a question?
Yeah. So you know, this book is obviously horror. I'll admit I haven't read it, but everything I've heard makes me want to read it. So it's definitely going on the top of the to read list once I have a bit more time.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned your next one's going to be romance, and you published a couple of books with the big five before you made your first horror with Quirky. So it seems like you've dabbled in multiple genres.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask, because I'm a writer myself, actually, like, how do you go about writing in a genre you haven't previously written in? So, like, your first horror with Quirky, how did you go about kind of like figuring out how to write something scary, something romantic? How do you learn to dial back that instinct to get dark and depressing?
Yeah. Um, I mean, it's an interesting question because, like, ultimately, I think it boils down to like uh, shelf space. Like, on an industry level, you know, all like bookstores are evolving and their kind of understanding of the marketplace is evolving. So, like, when I first started publishing, and I've been so lucky because my first book was published in 2002, and like that's when I started, and I was a kid, and I I didn't have the kind of like understanding of the industry uh at that point, and like the horror sections just did not exist, and I was writing stuff that was dark and weird, and like you would almost kind of call it like horror adjacent. There were no vampires or werewolves, but it was, I mean, it was like Poe, like it was like a kind of riff off of Poe, but like there was just no horror section to put it in. So the publisher, like horror was kind of like a dirty word back then, and you know, they try to market it as something that wasn't horror. Um, so it was like that weird, like in a weird way, it was this kind of like evolutionary, like, I was the fish that was crawling out of the primordial ooze. I still had my gills. I still had like a tail, but like I'm like it's like this weird in between thing. And I've existed in that place for a long time. Like I wrote middle grade novels for Disney because that's just where the opportunity presented itself. So I was writing horror-ish things for kids at a time when like everybody was just looking for the next Goosebumps or looking for the next, like, and so like, I'm trying to answer your question by like say, like it wasn't so much that like I changed as much as the kind of like the view of it changed. Quirk was just the first place that they were like, no, this is horror. Like let's just call it this, because now there's a book, there's like a shelf, there's a bay at Barnes and Noble, and that's where we're going to put it. And so like the romance book, it's a horror romance. It's like they're calling it like horrormancy, like something like it's like so like everything is just it's and I think this is great because like the more things kind of intertwine and like it's not binary, it's not like black and white, it's just literally like all of these elements are just kind of melding together into something new or novel, and that's exciting. So
Mhm.
I mean, I maybe this is the answer to the question, but it's like it's not so much that you have to be like, oh, I'm writing in this new genre or this subgenre. It's like, what is the story I want to tell, and where does that exist? Um, it's a love story, it's a vampire story, it's a pirate story. Like all of these things can kind of coalesce, and we would be so lucky to have a publisher who would then be like, where are we going to put this one? And like it, but like I think for you, the writer, like letting the story dictate what it wants to be,
Mm.
um, because at the end of the day, that's all we've got. All we've got are these stories, and yeah, I, I think like publishers are honestly like they're just like trying to find ways in which to sell books. So for them, it's like, okay, there's a little bit of a love story here, so maybe we could call it, like, or like what's really big right now? Like romantasy is really big, so there's a dragon in this book, so like let's do that.
Mm.
Which is also to say, I have no answer. I have no clue. I'm just trying to chase my stories. So chase yours.
Go where the story takes you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the way I would.
Oh,
Oh, oh, we lost Anas. Can we bring him back just for a second? We cut him off just. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the way I would have put it was Horror was a redheaded stepchild, and then they were formally brought into the family.
yeah. They get to sit at the Thanksgiving table now.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Mark,
Jonathan,
how are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks for doing this,
Yes,
Clay.
you
I
are.
find this so fascinating. I really do. My son's a writer, so I find this interesting. He writes horror, and it's creepy horror. But anyway, I'm curious of like the process. I mean, do you write daily? Do you write certain amount of time each day? Or how do you make that happen?
Yeah.
How do you discipline yourself to get it done?
I
Because
mean, I'm like a total creature of habit. Like I if I don't write every day, I get a little ornery. Um, and I find that the best time to write for me is when nobody else needs me. So like I'm waking up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. I beat the sun. I start writing. My phone isn't doing anything. Like kids are asleep. Like everybody, like as long as everybody else is like asleep, that's just like undiluted time. Like that's work. And then like people start to wake up and like need breakfast and need like packing lunch, and so like I take a break, become a dad for a bit, get everybody off to school, and then it's like, okay, now I'm back. And I can write for, until lunch. And It used to be that I like worked best in the morning. I learned that I worked best in the morning, so I would have like an afternoon nap, and then I would wake up from the nap and it'd be like, oh, it's a new day, and I like started writing, and then I got a little older and I was like, I just want a nap, and so I realized, oh, exercise does the trick. So now instead of napping, I exercise, and that like kind of gives me another jolt. So like I am like I just have to like like there's the morning shift, there's the mid-morning shift, and if I have enough energy, there's like the early afternoon shift. But by like 3 o'clock, I am brain dead. I am done. Like there's just nothing I can like. I cannot contribute to
Is
society.
that every day? Is that like a daily schedule? That,
Yeah,
that's awesome. That really.
yeah.
I can't wait to read the book. I haven't yet, but I'm finding this very fascinating, and I'm looking forward to it. Gotta tell
Keep the bar low and just remember this conversation so that you'll be like, well, he seemed like a nice guy
you. Yeah.
when we were talking.
You are a humble man, my friend. You are a humble man.
I know how hard it is to put something like this together. I saw what my son does, and my son writes for a video game company, so he doesn't have the daily time. But he actually won a novel contest about a dozen years ago, and
Yeah.
this horror book that's got great reviews in there. And he writes a lot of short stories, but he hasn't written a second novel, and that's why I'm curious about that. I want him to do that. I hope he
Yeah.
finds the time to do it sometime soon, but he just had a kid and busy life, you know. So I was curious on the scheduling thing. But I really am fascinated. Thank you for doing this, and I truly look forward to reading the book.
Thank you.
Mark, thanks. And go ahead. Thanks, and Mark. Thanks for and you're a subscriber to the Pandy Pack, so thanks. You're going to get more books. We're so excited about that. I watch Casey. I wake up in the morning and Casey is writing, and it's cool. It's really cool. I love to see. I wake up and it's a joy to. It's a joy to see, wake up and know that she's been working and she's writing her, her own work, and it's really it is a job, and you have to approach it. It's your job. You get up and you go to work. It's great. Well, okay, thank you for that. Any other question? Well, you know what? Cindy had a question. I'm just going to read it here. Oh, and there's one right there from Chuck. Thank you, Michael. If there was one character from this journey, who would the one that would like Ash and ED2 would look this chaos in the face and say, groovy, let's do this? It's fun.
I mean, I think it would be Noah. I mean, like what's funny about Ash and Evil Dead 2 is that like so much happens to him and he's just reacting to it. And Noah in the book is a more bumbling, like ineffectual version of Ash, where like I just think of Ash like like blood is getting like splurted in his face and he's just like and like Noah's just like the cousin of that, where it's just like he's just like Ash is far more active and like he becomes the hero eventually, but like
Yeah.
imagine the one who doesn't become the hero, like the Ash that like it's just like
Now, I've now got that image of you in that character. So now that's, thank you for that. Hey, Cindy is asking, have you ever had an editor publisher ask you to tone it down as to the content of specific scenes or story content? That's a good question. And it goes back to the relationship that you have with your publisher. So that's interesting. Yeah. What do you think?
Yes. I mean, only in Wake Up, like, and not in the ways that I think you would imagine. Like, I've realized this after the fact. The conversations, the editorial conversations with Wake Up were really, I mean, they were super supportive. Like, they let me write this book, and at a certain point, the refrain was, "It's your book." And it's amazing how like a double-edged sword that becomes, because in the writing of it and the editing of it, I only heard the support of it. Like, it's your book. We want to support you and you telling the story that you want to tell. But now that the book is out there, it's like it's your book, and it's almost like this like hot potato of like, no, that was the one you wanted. So and I'm being cheeky, but like it is just so funny. Like at the end of the day, it's like, oh, right, I wrote this thing. It's like, okay, here we go. But for them, it was never so much that they were like, there were a few choice like things that like we think you may have gone too far, but those were so minimal. It was
Huh.
literally, it was more about like length and like how long the book was, and wanting to kind of make it feel like a engine. Like they just wanted this thing, and that's what it needed to be. Like this thing just needs to move, 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 move. Um, Even with like part two, which is very granular, like it 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 feels like a weird kind of like brainwashing kind of like cycles and loopholes and
Mhm.
like so everything just had to have a rhythm to it. And that was what editorially we really kind of focused on. Content wise, they were so supportive of like, oh, you want to do that? Go for it, Clay. Like, go, yeah, sure. You want to eat the dog? Eat the dog. You wanna like have your mommy issues out there? Go for it. Go to town. And and I was like, wow, this is really cool. They're supporting me. And now it's out, and I'm just like, there have been moments where I was like, why did my editor not protect me from me? Like, why did they not like it's just funny how like at the end of the day, it's that book is on a shelf. And oh
Mm.
my God, what have we done?
You should be very happy with that. And it is nice that your publisher gives you the latitude to write what you want to write.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
For better or for worse, I found that I might need more protection from myself than anything else.
Well, you know what? Don't stop writing. Keep writing what you just tell us the stories that you want to tell. And we will welcome that. Clay, I cannot thank you enough. Your time is valuable, and you've taken a lot of time today to hop on this call. We're so happy to not only have this conversation, but for you allowing us to carry Wake Up and Open Your Eyes in our very first Pandy Pack. We're very proud of that we were able to work with you on this, and we really appreciate you for that, and we appreciate you as a writer, and for putting your stories out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for including me. And honestly, like to get back to what you said at the way, way beginning of like community and the horror community in particular, and the kind of like the kind of like the scale of the horror community. Like I do feel like now more than ever, the horror community is such a safe space for readers and writers and fans. Like I think that having moments like this, even if it's virtual, like where everybody can just have a chance to like come together and share their ideas and their thoughts and their stories, like that to me feels, it's always been valuable, but I feel like it's just more valuable. And I think that like
Yes, it is.
you offering this to your community, to the horror community, like there's just great value to that. So thank you for letting me
Yeah.
partake.
Thank you. Thank you. And as I just say this again from our perspective as Pandy Press, we want to do more of this. We're going to do more of this. This community is something we want to strengthen and build, as you're saying. So I'll put it out to anybody that's here and watching this. The intent is that these Pandy circles will be exclusively for Pandy Pack subscribers and people that have purchased the Pandy Pack, but we're opening this one up to everybody. We want everybody to experience this, and so spread the word if you could. You can find us at pandypress.com or pandypack.com. So please spread the word. And Clay, good luck, continued success with this book. You've touched a lot of people with this thing, and you've opened up a lot of conversations as a result, and it's great. And I'm so excited to hear about your new work that you're the new works that you're putting out, and how diverse it is. It's going to be really fun to read what's coming down the pike from you. So very exciting. So thanks for being here with us.
See you in the romance section.
See you in the horror romance section.
romancing.
Right. Thanks to all of you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.